Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. A couple of reminders. Make sure you get your badge scanned. Make sure you fill out and return your survey forms. And of course, be sure to visit the exhibitor booth and network and learn from our vendors and sponsors. We're going to start off this afternoon with Kara Shava from Community Bank, who is a gold sponsor of the conference this year. Kara, you.
Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here. It's a fun week already. It seems like it's going faster than ever before. But Community Bank is a strong supporter of PFAC, and we appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you. I've been with Community Bank, it'll be 39 years this year, and I think the years since I've been working with you fiduciaries has been my favorite time. So thank you very much for letting us participate.
Thank you, Kara. And now if Leandra Sims would come up. Leandra McCormick.
Sims is speaking, just to confuse you.
It did.
Are you ready?
It did. Okay.
Okay. All right, so the first question is, has everyone been scanned? If you have not, please raise your hand. They're going to come to your table and scan you. So we have 2 over here that did not get scanned, 3. And there are a couple of seats. Keep coming in. We're trying to fill in all the tables. So we have a couple of seats up here, a seat over here. There's a couple of seats, 2 seats over here. I feel like and 3, we have 3, party of 3. And then a scanner, it's the 2 tables over here. Thank you, we so appreciate it. Keep your hands raised, and then let's get you the places filled in. So I have 1 seat over here at this table. I've got a couple spots here and there. We have 3 seats up here. Is everybody in? All right, let's begin this adventure. So part of this is you are going to have to leave your delicious lunch for just maybe 20 minutes. It will be there. We're not taking it from you. Just make sure everybody gets seated. I'm Leandra McCormick, not to be confused with Leandra Sims. I'm the Southern Regional President. I am privileged to bring this presentation to you guys today. It's going to be kind of an adventure. So we also have the amazing state board helping us. So you see them standing around. They're here to help us and give us some faces to the names that you see flying through with all the emails going on. And so we're going to start. Everyone's got their seats. I'm kind of waiting to make sure everybody's got a seat. All right, it is, let me get my phone out and put my glasses on because we all know today's thing is about normal aging versus not normal aging. And aging means I have to wear glasses. So our first speaker this afternoon is Leandra Sims. She has been programming for seniors since 2009. She has an arts background and graduated from Chapman University with a BFA in theater arts. She has taken those skills and begun to work with dementia patients. She uses her creativity and the training in the arts to really create the program that you're going to see today. What we're going to be doing in this experiential learning piece is part of a training that happens for all of the employees at the facility that she works in. And it was an eye-opener for me when I attended it at the Southern Regional meeting that they did this for. It is really kind of exciting. She uses her skills now to be in her life enrichment, and she now teaches all over at the various facilities for the firm that she works for. And she is also working with USC as her facility is going to become now a training center for their occupational therapist program. They have also seen the value of some of the things that you're going to experience today. And then I'll introduce our second speaker. So this is in 2 parts. First experiential, and then you'll get back to your lunches, and we'll have our second speaker. So Leandra, the other Leandra, are you ready? So on your tables, she's going to have you get started.
Hello. My name is Leandra Sims, and I work with dementia residents every day that I go to work. You can't hear me? Okay, they said they can't hear me. So I work with dementia residents every day when I go to work. And I am basically going to be taking you through an experience with the boxes that are in the center of your tables to kind of help you understand what it's like to be a person that's aging and having dementia. So as you're working with your clients, you can maybe have compassion and understanding in a different way for what they're experiencing. So to start with, we're going to be using these sensory boxes that are in the center of your table, and we're going to be changing our vision. We're going to place glasses on our face with Vaseline on one side and Sharpie marks on the other to understand cataracts, glaucoma, and the experience of losing your peripheral vision. Yeah, so this is interactive. I'm sorry you're all eating. We're going to get back to our lunch, but yeah, we're going to really get into the bubble of what it's like. So you're going to get out of your boxes these little glasses. I think we have some here too. That's okay. Okay, so you're going to get your glasses ready by placing, there's a little tub of Vaseline, and you're going to place Vaseline on those glasses so that you can really see what it's like for these residents. Oh, I guess we don't have Sharpies. So put Vaseline on both sides of your glasses. And really get them blurry. Don't be afraid to really experience. Yeah, no cheating. Make sure you really put the Vaseline on there so that you can really experience what it's like. The second thing you're going to do you all have your glasses sort of smeared with Vaseline? Are we still working on that? That's an excellent question. People with dementia do not put Vaseline on their glasses. This is just to experience what it's like. Okay, so we should all have our glasses about ready. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the gloves out of your box as well. And you're going to tape up your fingers. This is going to help you understand what it's like to lose the sensitivity in your fingertips. And it's also going to help you understand what it's like to have arthritis. So you're going to understand what it's like as the dementia progresses to lose some of your motor skills that they lose. So you're going to put the gloves on and tape up your fingers. Yeah, you're going to place one glove on each hand and really tape up just a few of your fingers so that you're losing a little bit of the mobility. Oh, yeah. So we're also gonna be using some here, these little earplugs in our ears. You're gonna place one in your ear, so that, not in both ears, just in one ear. So you can sort of understand what it's like to not be able to discriminate between all the background noises, and to hear what it's like to have the lack of balance of hearing and balance in your life. So you're going to place, to put them in, with these, you're going to roll them a little bit and then place it in one ear. So you should be, when you're all done, you should have a pair of glasses with Vaseline, gloves with your hands taped up, and one earplug in one ear. So you guys should be pretty much ready to go. If you're not quite ready, that's okay. Here are the tasks that you are going to have to do now that you have your glasses, your gloves, and your earplug in your ear. I want you to try and do the following task once you have it all on. I want you to try and find your driver's license and credit cards, because these are the things we're asking our clients to do all the time. I want you to try walking around the room and through a doorway if you would like that, to try that experience. I want you to meet someone new and try and learn their name. And then also on your table, you have a contract in the center of your table. And I want you to try and sign a contract and see what it's like for your clients when you're working with them. And then I also want you to try and taste something while you have all that on. The small candies that you can try and unwrap and really try and experience what it's like. So definitely talk to each other, maybe walk around if you want to take the opportunity and see how hard it is to walk around, how hard it is to meet someone new. Definitely take the time to sign that contract that you have in the center. So once you're finished with all your tasks, you can go ahead and, if you want to remove your glasses, you can keep them on if you want to keep them on and keep experiencing it. But when you're all done, you can start taking this stuff off and wrapping up your experience. So as we're finishing up, I want to maybe take a few minutes to maybe if anybody wants to share some of the experiences that they went through. Do we have anybody who has any feedback? It was awful. She said it's awful. Does anybody else have any other feedback from their experience? Something they didn't hear something. I signed just like my clients. That's really, yeah, definitely, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, so she's saying there's a lot of external stimulus going on and it's much harder to focus. Did anyone else experience a hard time focusing? A hard time? No focus, yeah, a hard time signing that contract that maybe you're asking your clients to sign all the time. Will this change for anybody how you might approach them, knowing that they might be experiencing all these things? As you're coming up to them, as you're asking them, have maybe a little more compassion. Did anything surprise you that you didn't expect? Yeah? So she's saying she didn't feel safe walking around without holding on to somebody. Did anyone else feel that way? Yeah, you don't feel, maybe you can understand why they move slowly or won't just go wherever you want them to go or just sign the contracts. Things that are easy to us on a daily basis might be a little more challenging for your clients as you're working with them. So it's about being compassionate and patient as they're going through all these things that they're going through. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. How do you help them? So that is the big question that we're all here to think about, and that's why it's good to maybe experience things through their eyes so that we can understand that how hard they're working to mask all of the things that they're coping with on a daily basis. They're going through so much and they're masking it. And so it's, for me, I work with dementia residents on a daily basis, and for me, I like to think about their life being in a bubble, like those bubbles you blow when you're a kid, that are kind of floating through the air, and they're inside of that bubble. And I have to gently go into the bubble and talk to them without popping it. So whatever is real in their world or whatever they're experiencing, I most generally have to agree with whatever's happening. I have a great story about one of my residents that came in my office with his underwear one day. And it was a pair of white underwear. And he came in, and what had happened was he had had a lot of accidents, and all of his underwear were in the laundry. But of course, I couldn't say, like, you wet your pants, and that's why you don't have any underwear. And in his head, he was really in a state of emergency. He did not have enough underwear to get through the week. So what I had to do was write down the size of the underwear, the make of the underwear, let him know that I knew how to go to JCPenney and get him some more underwear, asked him how many he would need, and told him he would have them by the next morning. He felt great. I got in the bubble with him. He felt fantastic. He walked away knowing that everything was going to be all right. But what I didn't do was say, well, you shouldn't have wet your pants. You shouldn't have, your clothes are in the laundry. Why don't you understand that? I made sure that I got into his bubble, understood how he was feeling, and then kind of helped him float along and be happy and safe, because I'm being compassionate to his world and what he's going through. And that's the whole idea of experiencing, and that's why we did this today. We put on those glasses to maybe walk in their shoes. So as you're walking and talking to them, try and think about that lack of vision. Try and think about how hard it is to balance and hear you, so that you can get into that bubble with them and help them glide along. And any other questions?
Why do some get so mean?
Why do they get? Yeah, I experienced that. Mostly anxiety is what I find. She asked, I'm sorry, I forgot you guys can't all hear that. I'm used to being in a smaller room. She asked, why do they sometimes get so mean and aggressive? And it's mostly, for me, I find it's mostly anxiety and fear. And as the more that they are safe in their bubble, the less mean and aggressive they are, the more they feel comfortable, the more they have a daily routine, the more they have everything in place, and the anxiety lessens about where they are in their space and time, the less aggressive they become. But definitely, when they are angry, validating their anger is probably your best option. So if they're screaming at you because their jackets have been stolen, validating their concern is probably your best option. Saying there's no way that happened, or you can't handle that, or you're being irrational isn't going to work. Agreeing with them that they are in a state of emergency or helping get into their world is always going to help lessen that anxiety and fear, and then you can try and redirect. But the most important thing is to validate their concerns. You have a question?
Do you use these techniques with people who are beginning also?
Yes. Yes. She said, I use these techniques with people in early stages of Alzheimer's. And yes, I do. They will look out the window and they will say, I see monkeys out there. And I will say, it's kind of early in the season for monkeys. So yes, for sure, I tend to use those techniques and meet them where they're at as soon as I look them in the eye. I make sure they see me, they know who I am, they know I'm a safe person, and then meet them where they're at. And then I try and address. But it takes a lot of patience, and you really got to slow down. Yes, that's the most important thing. Any other questions? Well, thank you for letting me talk to you today. It was an honor, and thank you.
So now we're going to change gears and work on the cerebral part of it. We have a very interesting presentation on normal versus not normal aging from Minda, right? Did I say it right? Cutler. She has her own business up here. Her presentation is chock full of some really cutting-edge research on dementia and what happens. And it is one of those moments for me. It was an aha moment for me when I saw this presentation. And I am so excited to have her here with us. Would you please welcome to our podium? Actually, she's going to be she's on the mic, right? So come on up and tell us a little bit about yourself and get started.
Thank you. Okay, am I on? Can folks hear me? No. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, my name is Minda Kutcher, and I'm really glad to be here today. I am actually a daily money manager, and a daily money manager pays bills, balances the checkbook, does household budgets. And when I started my business, Love and Order, about 10 years ago, I decided that my primary clientele was going to be seniors. So a lot of my clients and their families think of me as the dutiful daughter who's really good at math. And a lot of the fiduciaries that I work with consider me a pre-fiduciary because I engage with my clients while they still have competence and when they don't need the full level of services that professional fiduciaries provide. As a result of this, I need to stay away from there. I've been witness to watching this journey from people who have competence, walk through that door of mild cognitive impairment into dementia. And what I want to do today is share that with you. So what I'm sharing with you today is really my personal experience along with some training that I've gotten. So knowledge and experience gained over the 10 years of working with seniors. My clients base, my youngest client is 83, my oldest is 97. So that's the pool I swim in. Okay, so I'm going to share a lot of statistics with you. The first one I think is very, very significant. I want you to look at the people around your table and know that by the time each of you gets to the age of 80, half of you sitting at your table are going to have dementia. So I like to think of it, in this room we're going to be okay, but it's all the people out there, the rest of the conference attendees that are in trouble. Dementia is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. It kills more than breast and prostate cancer combined. I think an important statistic is the fact that 25% of dementia caregivers are sandwich generation. Just looking around the room, I'm one of them. We're the folks who have our own careers and lives, busy lives, and kids at home, kids in college, maybe kids who have graduated from college and we're trying to get them out of the house. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we get slammed with an aging parent who needs a little or a lot more help. That's the sandwich generation. What I really want to charge all of you to do today is to think about some of these things that I'm going to share with you and think about how they might be important in your personal lives, because I bet you every single one of us in this room is going to be impacted by dementia, but also how it might affect your practice. You know, what your practice is going to look like in 5 or 10 years, because even though these numbers are really scary, they also present a lot of opportunities from a business perspective. A lot of you, I'm sure, know people with dementia have twice as many hospital stays as those without. And that creates a huge financial burden because we all know that Medicare and private insurance don't really begin to cover the cost of long-term care. So a lot of the statistics I'm going to share with you are just what things look like today. And I'm here to tell you that things are just going to get exponentially worse. Every day today in the US, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. By the year 2030, so less than 15 years from now, there are going to be 72 million baby boomers in the US. And for those of us who are close to 65, that 15 years from now is going to mean we're 80, which is going to mean half of us, the people outside the room, are going to be impacted by dementia. The other thing I want to highlight is, again, from the business perspective, the last 2 bullets. African Americans are twice as likely to have Alzheimer's or other dementias than Caucasians. And Latinas, 1.5 times. So again, think about, I don't know, but it's a great question. If you want the answer, I'll get back to you. As you think about your practice, and if you have an agency, the kinds of people you bring in, awareness and sensitivity to culture and language is something that I really want to encourage everybody to think about. And these statistics were drawn from national statistics here in the Bay Area. Obviously, we have a much more diverse, culturally diverse population. So again, think about potential clients and their needs. So today's session, this is my disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a fiduciary. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to know a lot of answers to your questions because this is really based on my experience and the training I've gotten. But I'm my primary goal here today is to give you context. As I said in the beginning, I deal with clients when they have capacity and have borne witness to that journey through the door over to the other side. And the other side is where the fiduciaries really play primarily. And so I want to give you context of where the family comes from and where the individuals come from on their journey. And I'm also going to share with you some resources. So Leanne did a fabulous exercise in terms of helping you understand what it feels like to have dementia. I'm going to go inside the brain and give you a view in terms of what's inside and how, and sometimes why it manifests. So what's normal aging? Normal aging, can't recall words, but if we describe it, I've got a citrus tree in my front yard. It's got those little yellow fruits. It's not as big as a lime, but it's kind of tart. And I know there's a letter Q in it somewhere, kumquat. And so sometimes by describing the word, I'll spark things for me. Typically what happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, oh, kumquat, long after I needed the word. But that's how it works, because we're slowing down. That's normal aging. For those of us who, for example, have lost our keys to the car, the house for the 3rd time this week, I wouldn't freak out. It probably means normal aging, lack of sleep, maybe a little stress. But these are the symptoms of normal aging. So what's not normal? So not normal is really not being able to think or do as before, like the experience you just went through. I mean, any of us right now could take out a pen, sign a contract, pull out our driver's license. But the inability to do those tasks is not normal aging. Getting stuck in a moment of time, and also getting confused between the past and the present. I had actually one of my very first clients was going over the threshold to dementia, and she was in her 80s, and she would look in the mirror and she would freak out. She would scream because she was stuck in this time when she was about 30 years old, and she approached that mirror expecting to see herself at 30 years old, and she saw this scary-looking older woman, and it scared her so much that the caregivers needed to keep her away from the mirror. Okay, I'm going to show you real quickly about a client of mine. Her name was Barbara, 73-year-old woman. She called me in because she needed to downsize, moving out of her 4-bedroom home in Saratoga filled with lots of papers. Her husband saved every single document. I found a tax return from 1956. And she wanted help getting rid of paperwork. She really didn't want to throw out anything she shouldn't have. And she told me she recently had cataract surgery and she was really having a hard time with paperwork, and that's why she needed to help me. So I want you to take a look at her checkbook. Hopefully this shows up. Okay, she had written a check to David Chang, a physician. If you take a look at the words written out, say 1,500, but the numbers are a little off. 1.1500 doesn't really make sense, and she knew it didn't make sense, so she tried again. 1,500, the words are still the same, but it looks like actually it is 15,000 as she wrote it out. But again, she knew it was wrong, X'd the whole thing out, and her final attempt, and she wrote good check, just so she'd know, again, the words are right, 1,500, but I can't even begin to tell you what the numbers are, 530305. And she sent that check to the doctor. So this is not the after effects of bad cataract surgery. This is not normal aging. And what I've learned over the years is that the inability to handle household finances, it's a manifestation of that part of the brain that really is the canary in the coal mine for dementia. So I talked about passing over the threshold. That threshold is mild cognitive impairment. And mild cognitive impairment isn't always dementia, but things change. And things change significantly enough that the person impacted or their family notices, but it really doesn't interfere with their lives. So this could be, the 80-whatever-year-old woman who's still driving, who we know in our heart of hearts shouldn't still be driving, but she can understand driving. So mild cognitive impairment, the MCI isn't always dementia. See, these are some of the health conditions that might also mimic dementia. Medication side effects. Something that is very, very common is a UTI. How many of you have had clients with a UTI? You thought they had dementia or their dementia was worsening. Yeah, something really, really significant. Okay, mimics of dementia. I'm not going to really spend time on that. But again, depression can sometimes mimic dementia. People get isolated. They don't want to talk. Moodiness, change in sleep. Also delirium, which is that other side, a little bit more active. And again, infection toxicity sometimes is a symptom. So what is dementia? Dementia is an umbrella term. It's not necessarily the disease itself. Under that umbrella, we have several different kinds of dementia. The most common is Alzheimer's disease. There's young onset and then later life onset. And the age at which young onset happens or is labeled as such is around 65. The next most common dementia is Lewy body. And Lewy body has something to do with the fat cells in the brain and deposits, but it very often manifests with visual hallucinations. Vascular dementia is one that typically affects people who are at a higher risk for stroke, people who have diabetes, people who are morbidly obese. Frontal temporal dementia is the one that comes out as inappropriate behavior. I had a client who I think I'll talk a little bit about later who would come to the door in her underwear, or the client who pees in the planter as opposed to in the toilet. Could be frontotemporal dementia. But again, I'm not a medical professional. I don't know if there are any of you out there who are. It's really, really important before putting a label on things based on some of the stuff I'm going to show you today to get an accurate medical diagnosis, because that's going to determine what the proper treatment plan, and also from a financial perspective, get a sense of the trajectory of the illness so you can help do the planning from a financial perspective. So what is dementia? Dementia is literally a chemical change in the brain. The cells that produce chemicals in our brains that help us think start sending less, and you'll see a picture in a slide or two of how and why. Production is not consistent, so you may get chemical rushes and whatever the opposite of rush is. There's also structural changes in the brain. Cells are literally shrinking and dying. And the important thing is that these changes are permanent. I think all of us know that because we've experienced it. There are medications out there that can slow the progression of the disease, but there's nothing out there that can stop it, and there is not yet a cure. And one phrase for what dementia is it's brain failure. Changes everything over time. It's something that the person can't control. So as Leanne was talking, we want to be very, very cautious and careful with our words and our interactions with our clients, because it's not their fault. What do you mean you don't remember? We can't use that language. It's not their fault. It's not the same for every person. So what works for one client won't necessarily work for another. It's not a mental illness. And it's very real. It's very hard. I'm sure all of you know it's hard for the individual as well as the family. So 4 truths about dementia: at least 2 parts of the brain are dying. It's chronic, can't be fixed. It's progressive. It will get worse, and it's terminal. Usually after a diagnosis, I believe the average tenure for someone who's been diagnosed is about 8 years, and it's a very expensive 8 years. So we'll take a look specifically at Alzheimer's for the next several slides. Alzheimer's, new information is lost, recent memory worsens. People may be impulsive and indecisive. That impulsive thing very often is driven by that chemical rush I talked about earlier. Changes are noticeable every 6 to 12 months. Things will get worse. They'll take a step down, take a step down. And what I've found is that, major challenges for people will accelerate that stepping down. So a hospitalization, perhaps a move from someone's home into a facility, and typically folks last 8 to 12 years. So this is, I think, is one of my favorite slides. So this is a PET scan. And a PET scan is where a dye is injected into your body, and it lights up certain parts of the brain. And the blue and green areas in the picture are those areas of decreased and limiting chemical activity. So on the left side, left slide is what a normal brain looks like. The top is a slice this way, and the bottom is a slice that way. So take a look at how similar to a late-stage Alzheimer brain client, patient, how similar it is to a child. And that would help explain a lot of the behaviors that we see. Yes?
When you said 2 parts of the brain are affected, what did you mean by that?
So I'm going to go through next, thank you very much, some of the different parts of the brain, and so more than one of the parts that you'll hear about. Okay, this is kind of gory, but on the left side is a plump, healthy brain, and on the right side is a brain affected by Alzheimer's. So you can literally see how those cells have shrunk and why the chemicals can't flow very quickly because there's these huge chasms created by the drying out of the brain tissue. So Alzheimer's is brain atrophy. The brain actually shrinks. Cells wither and die. That's why abilities are lost. And with Alzheimer's, the area of loss is fairly predictable. And again, I'm going to tell you a little bit, show you a little bit more finely the parts of the brain that are affected. And again, every experience is individual. So just because someone has Alzheimer's doesn't mean my mom's Alzheimer's is going to look like your cousin's Alzheimer's. So this shows the occipital lobe. So it's the pointy part, which is in the back of our heads. And what I think this really shows is the exercise that Leanne had everyone do with the Vaseline on the glasses. You can see how the lobes have pulled apart and how they're dried out. By the time you're 85, and if you've got Alzheimer's, your field of vision is pretty much like that. And then add that Vaseline to it. It's significantly impaired. So you need to think about, as you interact with someone who has Alzheimer's, who's in their 80s, what that looks like for them, and as Leanne said, meet them where they're at. So we lose peripheral vision, we lose depth perception, which makes it hard to walk. And I'm sure you've noticed a lot of Alzheimer's folks sort of shuffle and move very quickly. The woman I talked about who would look in the mirror at herself, near the end of her life, we actually had to put her in bed to lie flat all the time because every time she stood up, she felt like she was on the precipice of the Grand Canyon ready to fall over. She had lost her depth perception that much. So, but things that are preserved are that middle field of vision and also being very curious. You may notice that Alzheimer's folks will grab onto, might grab onto a sleeve or a tie and really look at it. And they need to get up close to see it. Okay, this part of the brain is the temporal lobe. And those are the lobes next to our ears. This is the part of the brain that controls memory, understanding, and language. And just because when I was putting the slide together, I wasn't really good at the circles. The one on the left, the normal brain, that circle should be around the glob of stuff in the crook of the J. So you can see what a normal brain looks like and what the one affected by Alzheimer's. So lost abilities, these are where you can't interpret words, people miss some words, people get off target. I learned that in a typical sentence, out of 5 words, someone with Alzheimer's can only pick up 2 of them. So again, when you talk with them, it's really important to speak slowly, use very, very simple words, And if you need to, repeat yourself. People with this temporal lobe that's affected can get facial expressions. So you do want to not get in their face this way, but make sure you're in their field of vision, and that you might even want to exaggerate your facial expressions. Use some nonverbal cues. The other interesting thing is folks with this kind of dimension learn how to cover. It's a nice way of saying lying. So they'll either talk around stuff or lie. I was with a client yesterday who was having an assessment by a geriatrician, and he was asking her, do you know what year it is? And she said yes. Oh, what year is it? I know what year it is. Well, what year is it? You know, and I think he left that and went on to, do you know what day of the week it is? Carolina, and she starts calling for the caregiver. All of a sudden, she had to go to the bathroom. So people can be clever. Okay, this part of the brain is the hippocampus, and that's what regulates emotions as well as memory. So here are some of the lost abilities, as well as the preserved abilities. Okay, this one I think is really very interesting. This is the hearing center, so that the skinny part of the J. See, in the Alzheimer's brain and the normal brain, they're really pretty much the same. So what that means is not everyone with Alzheimer's is deaf. We don't have to yell at them to make sure they understand. You know, they don't understand because of something else that's going on. Obviously, if there is a hearing issue, that's something that should be addressed. And there's also data that says people who have Alzheimer's are particularly sensitive to hearing loss. I didn't say that well, but what I mean is if they've got hearing loss, it's really, really important to protect what they have, because the more isolated they become, the less hearing they have, the faster the disease may progress. So something to keep in mind, again, when you're working with your client, assessing them for what their medical needs are. Okay, this is a cross-section of the frontal lobes. The one on the top is the healthy brain. The one on the bottom is the Alzheimer's. And this controls thinking, planning, organizing, problem solving. This is the executive control. This is, for my clients, this is the area that gets affected the most. They start to lose the ability to exhibit judgment when writing checks or assessing people they welcome into their home, understanding how much money they have. I had a client, one of my first clients, she lived in Section 8 housing, and I took her on because she couldn't pay that much money, and it was a great way to start. And come to find out, she had close to $1 million. You know, I didn't really understand that. Wasn't important to her. Okay, so this slide really, it's the same frontal lobe look. And what I think is really interesting is, so you take a look at the red circles, those are the sensory strips. There's big changes in those. So that's the motor skills, the language skills. What I really love about this is if you take a look at the blue circles, that automatic speech, there's been a lot on YouTube, if you watch, or not YouTube, Facebook, about communities that have discovered about how music will wake up Alzheimer's patients. I have a client right now who is well into her 80s, and she's at that point where she has really lost the ability to put together coherent sentences. She can speak, but it's gibberish. And when the caregiver plays music, this woman comes alive. This woman can sing every stanza of "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands." And every time I leave her house, I sing that song in my head for the next 10 days. But you know, this is also where I get to see how really good caregivers work with their clients. That caregiver for that client has learned to sing or speak very rhythmically to the client to, let's go to the bathroom, let's go to the bathroom. And the client will just march along with her. But if she sat there and tried to talk her into it, it wouldn't happen. So again, understanding a good diagnosis, what parts of the brain are affected, will help create a good care plan, as well as helping you cost out plan of care. Okay, so tools for success. I can't say it enough to really slow down, and visual and verbal cues in combination are really important. Simple is always better in your words and your actions. Wait, pause, never say, don't you remember? I mean, it's a great guideline for all of us, I think, because it really ticks me off when my husband says, don't you remember? I asked you. But especially with Alzheimer's patients, because they don't. And it will do nothing other than frustrate them. But the most important thing, I think, is building a team. And that's where I really do bow down before all of you professional fiduciaries, because you're amazing team builders. You are able to build an ecosystem of caregivers. You know the professionals that need to get involved. You've got the context to build a team to support not only the client, but the client's family, friends, everyone who's involved in their life. So it really does take a village to walk along the journey of having Alzheimer's and dementia with clients, and I really strongly recommend that you get as educated as possible so you can help your clients and their family. There's a lot of resources out there now. There are a lot of us in this room who are available to you as resources, and I really want to encourage you to reach out to all of us and take advantage. So now I'll go to the scary part and ask me questions. This is where I get to say, I don't remember. So pain, the only thing I can say about pain is, oh, I'm sorry. So is there anything about dementia and pain? So my experience with pain is a lot of people with dementia get very, very sensitive to touch. And, holding onto them tightly can be very, very painful. Being in the shower can be very painful. So I don't know if that addresses your question. There's an expert here in the room who might be able to answer that better. And in terms of coming in and out, again, I'm not that well versed to know like there's a specific dementia that manifests that way. But I do know in terms of like that chemical rush, one day somebody can be very coherent and with it, and the next day they can be way off the farm. And it comes and goes. So I'd need a medical professional probably to answer that one. And if you're interested, if anyone has any questions that I can't answer, I really do want to invite you to come see me afterwards. I'm going to be here for the rest of the conference, and I'd be glad to get the question written down and connect you with the answer or resource. Patricia.
Pain can cause more confusion and agitation, so it does have an effect.
Okay, so Patricia, a geriatric care manager, says pain can cause more confusion and I forgot, agitation. I've got the short-term memory, I'm stressed. So what was said is people who have dementia are very often under-medicated for pain because they can't express themselves. And Tylenol is very effective. Great. Any other questions or comments?
One of the things I looked at working with Alzheimer's patients and having one in my family now from my younger sister is that when I talk to her in a very different way because she has 3 sons. And their concept is we should all talk alike. In other words, be someone or not. don't talk to her that way, talk to her this way, but they don't have any knowledge of the patient's real issue.
Okay, we'll see if I can summarize that. So there's a family member who has dementia, and several different family members interact with her and communicate with her differently. And you feel that your way of communicating with her is more effective. You've known her for longer. You have a special relationship with her. How do you handle the family members who say, no, you should say this, or you should behave like that? My personal opinion, and it's also leveraging what Leanne said earlier, is dementia changes over time, and you need flexibility to read the tea leaves to understand how to effectively communicate with the person. So, I think it's one of those things where there's no right answer. You just keep trying to see what's effective, and the same words coming out of somebody else's mouth may not have the same effect. Yeah.
Is there a good or better way to deal with the person who asks the same question within a minute of the time they ask, and you barely get the answer out before they ask again?
Yeah. I find trying to redirect is probably the most effective. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What's a good question? When are we going to dinner? And dinner's not 4 hours from now. Well, we'll be going to dinner in 4 hours. When are we going to dinner? Oh, dinner's in 4 hours. When are we going to dinner? Dinner's in 4. So you can say, hey, let's go for a walk, and just kind of get them out of that space. It's sort of getting them unstuck from that point in time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
My situation would be the person would ask me in a 15-minute drive, now where are we going? And I would answer
Yeah.
every time, so it would.
Sometimes,
I tried to
yeah.
alert, but it would still come back, now where are we going?
Yeah, so the question, so she said she's in a car, a locked space, you can't go anywhere. And, every 15 seconds would be, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? Hey, if you have kids, are we there yet? Sometimes a really effective solution is to go back in time to a time where they know. Tell me the story. Tell me about the time you met Dad or Grandpa. Tell me a story, and take them back to that time, and it will get them unstuck. And they can also swim in the waters where they're comfortable. So give it a try and let me know how it works.
Yeah, to the point about music in the car, because I've gone like that at 15, 20-minute car ride, you're dying. I started using music, and I got Sirius XM, 40s on 4. They love 40s on 4.
So the suggestion was, like we were talking earlier about music, is 40s on 4, the Sirius XM radio station. Find music from the period in which they were most tuned into music, and put that radio on and start singing. Okay. Well, I think that's it as far as time. I'm going to give myself a hook. Thank you very much.
So we would really like to thank both of these speakers for coming and sharing some very valuable skills with us. These are gifts from PFAC to say thank you very much for speaking. Can you give them another round of applause? And then I really would like you guys to give yourselves a round of applause for being such good sports and doing this particular exercise today. You guys were awesome. All right, so there'll be you just need to get yourself together, and you're on break until the next session starts. Right, and they'll be available for a little bit if you need to ask them questions.
So what do you think? I think we should take this.